Our first module is communicating effectively. By the end of this module, you should be able to identify elements of the communication process and the factors that influence it. Identify forms of communication. Describe channels of communication at work. Show ability to give job instructions. Display the ability to give and receive feedbacks. Show ability to deliver effective presentations by using verbal and non-verbal language. Show the ability to participate and conduct meetings effectively. This module is made up of 4 sessions. Session 1 is the nature of communication. Session 2 will be looking at job instructions and feedbacks. Session 3, delivery of effective presentations. And Session 4 will be on conducting effective meetings. Session 1, nature of communication. What is communication? Communication is the transfer of information between people which usually results in an action. It involves a sender and one or more receivers. A message which is transferred or shared between 2 or more people. It is a two-way process. The transfer of a message resulting in some kind of response. Let's look at the elements of the communication process. The elements are 1, a sender. The sender is the person who sends information to one or more persons. The second element is the receiver. The receiver is one or more individuals receiving the information sent by a sender. The third element is the message. The message is the information sent from the sender to the receivers. The fourth element is encoding. Encoding is the form in which you send the information. The fifth element is decode. This is the way that a receiver interprets the information received from the sender. The sixth element is a feedback. The feedback is the way in which a receiver lets a sender know how the information is understood. The sender can also send the feedback back to the receiver if the receiver does not understand the message. Noise can also affect the encoding or decoding of a message. Noise can be emotion, it can be the setting, it can also be the context in which the message is sent. Several factors can influence the communication process. We're going to look at 3 major factors that influence the communication process. The first one is personal perception, and this is the way a person perceives or sees his environment through a personal viewpoint. Perception is influenced by your values, your upbringing, and your beliefs. The second is emotions. Now, emotions can influence both the sender and the receiver. A person having positive emotions tends to receive a message more actively than one having negative emotions. Another factor that influences the communication process is context, and this is the situation in which your message is being delivered. Now let's look at the forms of communication. There are 2 forms of communication. We have the verbal and non-verbal communication. Successful communication is not always the result of what you say. It is also a result of how you say it. Taking into account your eyes, your posture, your overall body language, even your appearance and tone of voice at times can affect communication. Non-verbal signals are so powerful, they don't only influence the success of your communication with others, but they also give you signals about the reactions of the receivers. For example, if during a meeting, the attendees begin to doodle or chat among themselves, it means that they are no longer paying attention. You should know by this message that you are boring or that your delivery is no longer engaging. Non-verbal communication uses means that you do not require talking or writing. Body language, for example, this consists of several elements. When you talk about body language, talk about eye contact, You talk about your postures and gestures. You talk about your voice. You talk about your facial expressions and body movement. Eye contact is very important in sending or receiving messages. It can be a signal of interest, recognition, honesty, or credibility. For voice, every time we speak, our voice reveals our gender, age, geographic background, level of education, native birth, emotional state, and our relationship with the person spoken to. When we speak, we encode or decode important information about ourselves. When we listen to others, we also decode important information about them. The tone of your voice inspires boredom, liveliness, or enthusiasm. Your posture is also very important when communicating non-verbally. So be mindful of this because you can complement or contradict your message by your posture. Facial expressions, your body movements, all of this communicate as you speak. That brings us to the end of session 1. I need you to take a few minutes to think. Have you found yourself in a situation where you were trying to pass on a message and you were misunderstood? Think about the context. Think about how that message was sent. It could have been that your body language sent a different message while you were saying something else. Session 2, Job Instruction and Feedback. What is job instruction? The job instruction is a step-by-step structured on-the-job training method in which a trainer prepares a trainee with an overview of the job, the purpose of the job, and the desired results from the job. The trainer demonstrates the task or the skill to the trainee. The trainer must allow the trainee mimic the demonstration on his or her own to show that he or she understands the task. He must also follow up to provide feedback and help to the trainee. Giving job instructions. Before we can give job instructions, we need to state the specific objective of the task or the job at hand. For example, a call center operator. We want to train the call center operator on how to handle complaints from customers. The specific objective will be how to handle complaints effectively. When giving job instructions, you need to use imperative sentences and body language. Even though you're on the phone, your body language can be detected through the tone of your voice. You also have to ensure that the staff understand what we're teaching or what we're trying to pass across. And the only way we can understand this is to ask the staff open-ended questions or have the staff repeat the instructions that we have given. If the task involves the use of a machine or equipment, then it is important that a demonstration is given to the trainee. You must encourage your staff to ask questions for clarification. Always set an appropriate time for giving job instructions so that you're not distracted. Make a follow-up plan and give feedback to your trainee. Feedback. Feedback is one of the most important functions of a manager. It is the response of the receiver to the message of the sender or the opinion of a manager on the performance of his or her staff. Feedback can be positive or negative. Positive feedback praises what has been done well, and it can help improve the performance of people continuously by showing the extent to which the staff understands the instructions or tasks. It also lets the staff know their strengths and their weaknesses. Good feedback will also build trust between people through open and honest communication, which prevents the grapevine from running wild. Negative feedback points out the deviation and suggests correcting actions. Steps in giving feedback. First, you have to remind the receiver of his or her objectives. To gain your recipient's commitment to change, describe the positive consequences of the behavior that you are discussing. For example, if it's about attending meetings, you could say, If you attend all our meetings, you'll be better informed of all that is discussed and will be involved in making decisions. If your recipient is still resisting, you need to describe the negative consequences of his behavior. For example, but your frequent absence will lead to your isolation from your colleagues and from what is discussed in these meetings, and this will certainly affect your performance. The next step will be to set a plan for change or discuss a solution. The outcome of this process is a commitment from the recipient on not repeating the mistake and a plan to change, which would include an agreement on the stated problem and a detailed action plan. You need to confirm what was agreed upon and then follow up to make sure that the task is done. Rules in giving negative feedback. When giving feedback, always specify the wrong behavior and its impact. Don't generalize. For example, don't say, your performance is bad, but rather say, the way you handled the conflict between your staff was this, that, or that. Always specify how you feel about such behavior. Don't say to the staff, it is obvious that you have lost interest in your work, but rather say, you have been arriving late to work since the beginning of the month. Your feedback must always be well timed. It should be given as close to the event as possible and should not be given when you are angry or upset. Feedback that states what is done well as well as what is not done well is constructive. They are likely to make your staff less resentful and less defensive. People are more likely to consider negative feedback when it is given in private. Don't ever tell off your employees in public or in front of other people. Call them to a private setting and give them feedback. Again, do not give feedback when you are angry or upset. When giving negative feedback, mention only one or two issues at a time. Don't bombard the receiver of your feedback with a large number of issues. If the behavior requires discipline, avoid threats. Take action immediately and inform the recipient after applying the above steps. This brings us to the end of session 2 on job instruction and feedback. On your screen, you see a short case on a feedback from a manager to his subordinates. Please read through the case and answer the questions that follow. Session 3. Delivering effective presentations. Structure of a presentation. A presentation should start with an introduction that includes a brief outline of what you are going to say. Next, you start talking about your topic in details. Always support your information with visual aids, comparisons, and facts. Thirdly, close your presentation by a conclusion that includes a brief summary of what you have said and the points that you are trying to make. Preparing effective presentations. The most important question to ask before working on any presentation is, what do I want my audience to do? And how do I convince them to do it? Or, how do I convince my audience to use the information I am giving them? In other words, you must establish the objectives of your presentation. Secondly, you must know and understand your audience. You should know as much as you can about who you are going to be talking to. What are their interests and expectations? What is the level of their knowledge about the topic? What is the level of their education and culture? Third, decide on the key points that you need to convey to your audience in order to achieve your objectives. Create the content. The fourth is to create a structure. Create a sensible and logical structure incorporating the points you're going to make. The structure has to have a beginning, that is an introduction. It has to have a body, and it has to have an end, which is a summary and conclusion. Make a brief outline of what you're going to say. If you're not going to be using PowerPoint, then you need to use cards. This will help to guide you so that you do not miss any points. Select the equipment that you would use to help you convey your message. Make sure you're conversant with the equipment. Apply the rules of successful communication when presenting. Make sure you use the right verbal and non-verbal skills. Watch for your body language. It is important to rehearse your presentation. Practice your presentation and make sure that you know how long each part will take. At the end of it all, seek your audience feedback and make sure you answer their questions. Rules of successful presentation. Use simple and brief sentences with simple, clear, and accurate words. Avoid complicated technical terms unless your audience are technical people. Avoid expressions or jargons that are known only to very specific type of people. Use positive expressions and avoid negative ones. Use proper non-verbal languages to emphasize your points, such as relaxed gestures, with the right tone of voice. Don't play with a pen or a pointer or do things that will distract your audience. Eye contact is your primary tool for establishing audience rapport. Look at your audience in random rotating order. After the eyes comes your voice. The two most important aspects of voice for the public speaker are projection and variation. In a one-to-one conversation, you can see if the receiver missed part of your conversation. In front of an audience, you don't have this privilege. Therefore, be a little louder and slower in your speech. In normal conversations, your meaning is enhanced by your facial expressions. In a presentation, the audience would watch out for your face. If you are looking tired or distracted, then they will be tired and distracted too. If you are smiling, they'll be wondering why and listen to find out. When making a presentation, make sure your posture does not convey boredom. It should convey controlled enthusiasm about the topic. Always add stories, testimonials, comparisons, and demonstrations to keep your audience interested. Everyone loves a good story. This brings us to the end of session 3 on delivering effective presentations. But before we move on to the next session, I need you to pause and think. Think of a seminar, a training that you went to where you were engaged in the speaker's presentation. What was it that the speaker did that kept you engaged? Think about it and note it down. On the other hand, think about a training or seminar you went to where you were completely bored and distracted. What was it that the speaker did wrong that made you bored and distracted in his class? Note it down. It is important to note that great presenters are not born. They are trained. Follow the rules of successful presentations. Prepare well and you'll do great in delivering effective presentations. Our last session in the Communicating Effectively module is conducting effective meetings. Meeting or no meeting. Before calling for a meeting, you must ask yourself whether you should have it at all, or whether a group email or a few simple conversations can accomplish the objective more easily. Call for a meeting if you need to solve a conflict, if you need to obtain a group decision, if you need to define or solve a problem, if you need to obtain or give information about important or sensitive issues, if you need to get support for a project or an idea, if you need to get new ideas or find new ideas, if you need to inform your employees or your subordinates about work progress, if you need to introduce a new product or a system. Don't call for a meeting if there is no specific objective, if there is no need for a group decision. If there's a better way to achieve the same results, then there's no need to call a meeting. If there's no benefit from having the meeting, please don't call a meeting. If an important person is going to be absent from the meeting, then there won't be any need to hold that meeting. If the cost of holding the meeting is higher than the benefit you gain from the meeting, then please don't call the meeting. What is an effective meeting? An effective meeting is a meeting where you are well prepared. As previously said, before calling for a meeting, you must ask yourself whether you should have it at all. If you decide you must have a meeting, then you must plan for it carefully. This is perhaps your most important role as a meeting organizer. Planning for a meeting means you must decide what you want the meeting to achieve and how it will do it. This indicates the purpose of the meeting, which will help you decide on whose presence will help you achieve it. A meeting that is scheduled to take place during the periods of holidays, annual leaves, important events such as conferences or football matches is not well timed. Your meetings need to be held at the best time. If the meeting is to take place in a location that is away from the company's offices, the organizer should prepare the means of transportation for the participants. You must prepare an agenda that would list all the topics to be covered, as well as a time allotted for each topic. It should also list the starting and stopping times of the meeting, the location of the meeting, all participants and what is expected of them. For example, if they must bring data or reports to the meeting, then they need to know. An organizer may involve the participants in the planning of the meeting to ensure that they are interested in it. An effective meeting is well prepared, is well organized, and is well conducted. Roles of attendees. Everybody needs to know what their roles and expectations are when they are attending a meeting. A meeting usually has someone chairing it. You must have someone who takes the minutes, and then the participants. The chairperson is a person who controls and directs the meetings to ensure the achievement of its objectives. He or she will do the following: ensure that the meeting takes place according to plan, keeps the discussion on target and ensures that all the items on their agenda are covered, give opportunity to participants with useful ideas to contribute, anticipate disagreements or conflicts during the meetings, use the necessary skills to solve problems and make decisions effectively. The minute taker records ideas, decisions, or actions passed during the meeting. He or she needs to do the following: write names of the present attendees, write what goes on honestly and accurately without including his or her own ideas or feelings, write the names of those who are assigned tasks and deadlines, if any, send copies of the minutes to all participants as soon as possible. Participants generally must come prepared. They must come listening attentively, and they must also come to contribute ideas. This brings us to the end of this session, Conducting Effective Meetings. On your screen, you'll see a case study, Choice Furniture Company. Please read this case and answer the questions below it. We have come to the end of the module, Communicating Effectively. At the beginning of this module, we had said that you would learn how to identify elements of communication process and the factors that influence it. You'd learn how to identify forms of communication, describe channels of communication at work, show ability to give job instructions, display the ability to give and receive feedbacks, show the ability to deliver effective presentations by using verbal and non-verbal language, show the ability to participate and conduct meetings effectively. We hope we've been able to deliver on these objectives, and we advise you that you put everything that you've learned in this module into practice in your day-to-day work life. Thank you.